is the Life Story Podcast, Season 1, Episode 4 with Erika Dannelle, Unapologetic Self-Love. Good morning, I'm Kaylee B, and this is the Life Story Podcast. This podcast is meant to be a platform for people to share their life stories. Our life stories don't always define us, but they give us our purpose. The reasons that we choose to continue experiencing life as a human on this earth with and for each other in all of life's painful and joyful moments. For the first season of the Life Story Podcast, we are focusing on stories of resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover after a stressful or traumatic event. Hearing others' stories makes it possible for us to not only empathize with their pain or their struggles, but also to feel and experience for ourselves the joy and love that can be found again after such intense experiences. My guest today is Erika Dannelle, California native, wife, and mother of 4 who struggled with severe anxiety for years. By taking things one step at a time, finding support in her community, and learning to love herself unconditionally, Erika built resilience and found the strength and tools to manage her anxiety. She's now launching a coaching business to help other women find their power through unconditional self-love. During this episode, you'll get to hear Erika's story and how she cultivated resilience despite dealing with extreme anxiety. So Erika, welcome. It's so good to see you again.
Yes, I'm excited to be here and, share my story. I think there's a lot of people out there that go through the same thing, but they suffer in silence. And so my goal would be that by sharing my story, other people, can help heal themselves and find the resources they need so that they don't have to go through this alone.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And I'm super excited to have you here. I know that anxiety is a big deal these days. Lots of people are feeling it, and we have sort of the words to describe what we're going through now, which is really important. So tell us a little bit about this anxiety that you were dealing with.
So I'll start at the beginning with kind of my very first episode of having, panic and anxiety. So I was driving home from work on, just like a regular happy day. And I just was overcome with this like gripping fear and irrational thoughts of losing control of my vehicle and my car hitting me. And there was a rational part of my mind that was like, you're okay, you're safe. This is kind of crazy, so to speak. And I just couldn't, the fear was overpowering the rational part of myself. And I just remember like gripping the steering wheel and just like sobbing and trying to find like the nearest exit to pull over, which, I did. And I called my mom who lived close by, and I just, I was crying. I was like, I'm safe, I'm okay, but something's going on and I don't know. And I'm scared to drive. And she kind of talked to me for a few minutes and said, do you feel okay enough to drive to my house, or do I need to come get you? And I'm like, no, I can get there. So, I went to her house and I sat with her for about an hour. She didn't really, not that I expected her to, like have the tools or really know kind of how to help me, because we didn't at that point know what it was. But after about an hour, I felt better. I wasn't, crying. And I was able to go home, and I felt safe driving. I knew I had my cell phone if I needed to like pull over again. Kind of the next day I was a little nervous about driving, but I just chalked it up as to like, I'm a mom of 4, I have a full-time job, like, maybe just all these things. The stress of everyday life just kind of got to me. And so I was okay. I don't remember exactly the timeline, but I know that it was a pretty substantial amount of time passed where life was normal. I didn't have that experience again. So I felt, pretty good. And then like one night I was sitting watching a movie with my husband. It was like late at night. And again, that same just like fear and panic rose up in me. And I remember just like jumping up from the sofa. And I remember my husband looking at me like, what's wrong with you? And I remember it was really cold outside. And I remember just rushing to the front door because I just wanted to like take in as much cold air as I could, because I felt like that would help me, because my chest started feeling heavy. Like this is when I really started to feel like the physical symptoms of a panic attack. My chest felt heavy. I started like shivering, and to the point where like I was chattering. My husband couldn't really even like make sense of what I was trying to get out to him.
Yeah.
And it probably was only, maybe several minutes, maybe 5 minutes, but to me that felt like a lifetime. And I just in my mind was like, I'm going to pass out. I can't breathe. And, my kids are going to like be woken up and see their mom on the floor. Like I just, all these really drastic thoughts in my mind. And I remember telling my husband, we need to go to the hospital. Like something's wrong with me. And, we did. I went to emergency room and at that point they had advised me that, this sounds like a panic attack. And immediately, whenever I said that I was, a full-time working mom of 4, which nowadays is considered a large family, that I was a wife and, all these things, it's like, oh, there's stress in your life and that's why you're experiencing this, which could partly be true. But I just kind of felt a little bit like, not that they minimized it, but I'm sure they see that all the time. And it's like, oh, it's stress, just minimize your stress, take it easy.
Yeah.
But, from that point on, I was making regular trips to the emergency room because I was having panic attacks all the time and, crying. And, my mom had told me, like, maybe you should call your aunt because growing up, one of my aunts, it was, she had a phobia. So, I never heard the word anxiety or like a panic attack.
Yeah.
But I remember that, like, I knew she didn't drive and she didn't drive because she had a phobia of driving. So, I did call my aunt and it really helped to speak to somebody who had her own experience with anxiety because she could identify with everything that I felt or, physical or emotional. And she became what I call my safe person. So, I was so blessed that she was available to me 24 hours a day. I would call her at 2 a.m. every night, some weeks, just because I would wake up in panic. So, I was really grateful for that. And then just, I had to learn to allow myself to be vulnerable. Because I was the type of that, likes to be private, handle my issues kind of on my own. And, I think for some of us, we limit the ability to heal or have resources and support because we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to let people know that we're suffering or something's wrong. Especially as like women, we want to be strong and be able to kind of handle everything.
Yeah.
But once I started allowing myself, like for instance, at work, I went to my boss and I explained to her, this is what I'm going through. And there may be moments where I need to step away. And, she was so understanding. I didn't have to take a leave from work. Yeah. And I, at that time, shared an office with a coworker who we actually ended up becoming really good friends. But, I had to explain to her, like, I may bust out in tears, some days and nothing's wrong, but I'm just, this is what I'm going through. And she was like, don't worry about it. If you start to feel nervous, we can go for a walk or like however I can help you, let me know. So that connecting, like you said, finding resources in my community, that really, really helped. And I'm not against medication or, therapy. I think for some people, that's really helpful. I know for my journey personally, it wasn't the route for me. I had, a couple side effects that I wasn't comfortable with and I didn't want to work through it.
Yeah.
So, and to be transparent with that because somebody else may experience this. If they are having anxiety and maybe, choosing to have medication to help, I had like visions of hurting my children. And so, obviously that would, be scary to some people. So for me, I'm a spiritual person. I did a lot of praying. I was reading my Bible, but really connecting with other people, having my safe person, were really, really vital for me, like coming out on the other side of it.
You talked about a couple of things that you were doing, the prayer and finding a person. What was the process of sort of healing through this anxiety like for you? What were some of the lessons that you learned and some of the things that you started noticing as you were, starting to manage it better?
Yeah. So I I found that, the more I opened up and allowed like my emotions and my feelings to come out was so important, because what I actually was a huge learning, a huge lesson for me was that my anxiety actually started as a child. But we didn't know that, when I was 9, 10 years old. There was things going on in my home at that time that were affecting me, and it was coming out in the form of anxiety, but we didn't know that. So, I remember being in school and just like crying, going to the nurse's office because, I didn't feel good. And I just wanted like them to call my mom and come get me so I could feel like safe at home. Even though there was no threat at school, I wasn't having issues with like other kids but, later looking back, I'm like, oh, you know what? This feeling that I'm having now, I remember having that feeling as a child, and that's what it was. And so I started to think about kind of the events that took place in my childhood and just kind of like releasing it and not holding on to it. And because I was older, I could understand better like some of the things that took place. If I was holding any like resentment or bitterness towards anybody, I'm the type of person that I look at things from the other perspective. And I'm not saying that, my parents loved us very much, but parenting doesn't come with a handbook. And, there were some things that, they maybe could have done differently for me, but they didn't know any better. So at that point I was like, you know what, I can forgive them. They didn't know. It's not that they didn't want to help me. And just learning to like release bitterness, anger, and forgiving myself for like trying to do it all and then feeling guilty when I couldn't. And just really like learning to love myself. And I was like, my kids will be okay. My husband will be okay. The house doesn't have to sparkle and shine every day. The task at work that I'm like killing myself to overachieve. Like I really was kind of hurting myself. And so, really learning to take time, like, I would tell my husband, like, I just need an hour today, like to myself, and he would like take the kids somewhere, or kind of occupy them in the yard while I just sometimes even just like took a nap. Those were before they were luxuries, but I was like, these are not luxury things. These are necessary in order for me to, my family is important to me, but I have to take care of myself so that I can be what I need to for myself and for them. So when I started to learn that and see that, that's when my life really started to change. I started to feel better and lighter. Because one thing about anxiety for me is in the darkest of it, I felt really hopeless. And, I knew that like I have to help myself. Of course there's therapy, there's doctors, there's medication, but like it has to really start within me first. I have to love myself and be vulnerable and all of those things in order for me to move forward. So, the hopeless feeling, and I started having less panic attacks and more just like anxiety episodes where like I would just feel nervous. But now my power was growing, and I just kept, whatever little techniques I had, like if it was prayer or sometimes deep breathing or, sometimes stepping away and just being in silence for like, I started to just repeat those same things that were helping me. And I just started to become more powerful, and fear got smaller, and,
and you're building
that is another big help.
You're building that resilience, right? Like that is exactly, that's what resilience is. It's that being able to recover, even if it's a little bit at a time, is that, taking the time for yourself to rest, to journal, to do these things that bring yourself back to like a state of calm. That's how you build the resilience, how you cultivate resilience. And the more you do it, the more resilient you become, and the better able you are to handle these big stressful events in your life. And I think like what I love about your message is that it's about this self-love, right? It's about taking the time to do things for yourself, loving yourself enough to do those small things. And I think that's, sometimes resilience is learning to love yourself exactly how you are without the pressure of having to have a clean house, having to be the perfect mom, having to, work 12 hours and make a 6-course meal. Like it's just unrealistic. So it's creating that cultivating that self-love that allows you to do the little things that bring you back to a state of calm.
Yes. Yeah. And I know for me as a mom, I also was, now I can model that. Like my children see me
Yeah.
caring and loving for myself.
Yeah.
And, that was important to me because I mentioned I have 4 children. The oldest is a boy and I have 3 daughters. And so specifically for my daughters, I want to be that role model that okay to love yourself and care for yourself. It's
Yeah.
important. It's necessary. I don't want them to carry on kind of the learned traits that we get either from, our own homes or society that we have to be superwoman all the time, carry it all, do it all, because I know that was a big part of kind of why anxiety kind of came about for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just, my heart still like hurts for people that, are suffering in silence and don't know like where to go and what to do. And like I said, it can leave you in a really hopeless place. And so, I hope that whoever hears this message knows that like there is, there is light on the other side and you can totally go through it and make it and find happiness and live joyfully. Again, you can.
Yeah, definitely. We talked last time about sort of some tools, right? And you've talked a little bit about it today. Can you talk to me about some of the specific tools that you've used to help yourself deal with the anxiety and cultivate this resilience in your life?
Yeah. So now some of my like daily practices are, I definitely still stay connected to like prayer. Maybe for some people that may just be like meditating. I've learned to look at all the things that I'm grateful for or all the things that I'm accomplishing versus what I didn't get done. Highlighting that. I wake up in prayer, gratitude, and I set my intentions for the day. And I don't overload like I used to have a to-do list that was a mile long,
So guilty.
And now I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, you know what absolutely has to get done today. And I limit it to 3 things only. And my goal is to at least smash one of them. And if I do just one, like I was successful for the day.
Yeah.
But a big thing for me was, my kids are a little bit older now and just, 3 of my children drive. Like they now help me. They go do the grocery shopping. I make the list and they do the grocery shopping.
Yeah.
My husband helps out more. And I just, the tool again of having time for myself. So I know some days I can't get a full hour alone, but 30 minutes, 15 minutes has been really important. And I have to say, it's been several years now and I have not had a panic attack. I know, right? And I think back to, moments when I did, because sometimes I have to remind myself like how far I've come and what I've been through. And I'm like, you know what? I'm proud of myself because I did it. And, I will say I do still have not nervous tendencies, but sometimes I'll get a little anxiety kind of like, I feel it welling up in me, but I can identify it now and know like, you know what, I need to take a moment. Or, I need to call my girlfriend and just laugh and talk about nothing or vent, sometimes I just need to vent whatever's going on, but not, trying to just stuff it and ignore it because ultimately it's going to build. And then I don't want to end up in a bad space again. So those are some of the tools that I use. For me, I have to say, number one is letting it out. Like you have to find a way to let it out. Yeah.
Definitely. And you talked about 2 different things that I love. The first one is gratitude, right? Having that gratitude for the things that you can get done and the things that you have in your life, it just kind of creates this shift, right? Especially when you're dealing with anxiety and you're, for example, I have to go take a car trip and I'm really nervous about driving. You can, shift into that gratitude mindset where you're like, okay, I am really grateful I have a safe car with really good brakes. I'm really grateful that I have a full tank of gas. I'm grateful that I have someone to drive with me. I'm grateful that that I have the freedom to go places. And it kind of like helps you, shift out of that worry and experience of the past nervousness that you've had into, a more positive present moment. And the other thing you mentioned was celebrating these little moments. And I love that, right? Like you're taking these, whatever small accomplishment you can do, if you smash one goal on your to-do list, celebrate it. I love that.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think we celebrate enough,
No way. Yeah.
We're quick to look at all the flaws. And I used to have that mindset. And I think that's a huge part of why, and I don't want anyone to feel like place blame on them. Like, oh, I did this to myself. It's just, it's lessons learned that, I used to look at all the things I didn't get done in the day or, all the things that I was lacking. And I think, technology and social media is wonderful. Like, this right here is a product of that. But on the flip side, we have to be careful. And that's another really big thing is I had to pull away and give myself boundaries around social media and what I was taking in. Because, there's a false sense of like perfection that, whether you're aware of it or not, you're trying to now, like keep up with the Joneses, and like,
and that was feeding you.
Obviously, exactly. And so I was like, you know what? I am doing enough. I'm, doing the best I can with my children. I'm doing the best I can at work. I am giving the best of me, and that is enough. And so once I started to focus on the positive and all the wins, that really empowered me, and I just started to feel better about myself. And I was able to that's when I started setting my intentions for the day. Like, what is my intention? What do I want to move through this day and really accomplish? And for me, it was like, when I encounter people, I want them to feel positive energy. When I'm working on a project, I want my team members, my teammates to feel X, Y, or Z. Like, and then subconsciously, I just started to move in that way and started to even attract like positivity into my life.
That's amazing. And I love that you brought that up, that your goals necessarily weren't to like do something physically. It wasn't like, send 20 emails. It was more like having a feeling. And I think that's so important, right? Especially when, what you're trying to move away from was a feeling. And so it makes sense to have a goal or to set an intention to move into a different kind of feeling for the day. That is awesome.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah. It wasn't about having more or doing more. It was about feeling better.
I love that. Erika, tell us a little bit about your coaching business. What's going on with this? I'm so excited to hear about it.
Yeah. So, for a long time, I've thought about it for a long time because I knew that it was so important for me to have, like, I keep referencing my safe person, and I'm like, I would just love to have a platform for other women, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, anxiety specifically, but just whatever challenges or things that weigh heavy on, people, that there's a place to go, and that, they feel like there's help somewhere, and a place where somebody can identify with them. So, I am in beginning stages. I'm trying to, put it all together, but I'm really excited because I just feel like, again, my purpose now is, and where I find joy is in helping, other people and like spreading love. To me, when I look at the core of what's really actually most important to all of us is love. And So yeah, I'm trying to put together the program, where, again, it's just a platform for people to come and find hope
Yeah.
and hopefully heal through some things, and just, move through life and bring back joy and peace and self-love, learning
Yeah.
just how to care for themselves so that, they can give and receive love in a healthy way and, just feel better about themselves.
I love that. Teaching women
Yeah.
how to love themselves unconditionally, find the joy and
Yes.
peace again. I am so for that. I love it.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited. I'm really excited. Yeah.
Good. Is there anything that you want the listeners today to take away from this episode, from your life lessons? Do you have any last messages or last words?
Yeah, I just really want, anyone out there that is dealing with anxiety, maybe some depression, like whatever it is, it's weighing, heavy on you, to understand that even though it may not feel like it, you have the power to change the situation and you can definitely come out on the other side. Don't feel afraid or ashamed, that you're going through something, because all of us at some point in our lives will or have experienced.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised that more people are actually wanting and willing to support and help you. You just have to be willing to, put your foot out there and accept it.
Yeah, to open up, for sure.
Yeah, we have so much more power than we feel we do sometimes.
Yes, also true. That's the resilience, right? We are resilient people by nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we're definitely built to bounce back from things. We are.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Erika, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I
Thank
really
you. Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm really excited for your coaching business to launch. It's called I Love Me Too. I think you're going to make an amazing coach, and I will post a link to Erika's website in the show notes and in our social media posts if you're watching this online today. That is Erika Dannelle with her story of building resilience through anxiety. Thank you again, Erika. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
On next week's episode of the Life Story podcast, my guest is Grace Ann Rivera, a chronic illness thriver and prolific writer. She's the author of the book Coping Strategies for Living with Chronic Illness and is a wife and mother of 2 amazing children. A 3-time college graduate, Grace Ann holds a bachelor degree in education, Master of Arts in Management, and Master of Arts in Pastoral Counseling. Tune in to next week's episode to hear how Grace Ann has achieved so much despite living with chronic illness for so long. Until next time.